start to get the meeting underway. So basically, it's projects and monitoring meeting, so committee meeting. Welcome to our visitors there to speak in public forum. Remember that this meeting is being live streamed, so take care. And it's available obviously for people to view. Today we do have, I'll move over to the apologies perhaps and work from there. So we basically declare the meeting open, and I have just a basic thought for today. As we meet today, let us keep the centre of our deliberations, the people and let's centre of our deliberations, the people and communities affected by our decisions, striving always to act with fairness and foresight. I will move now to apologies. We have one for lateness from Councillor Joyce, and that's the only one we have at present. Laura's on, and Laura is online. Okay, so somebody, no, I haven't heard anything. Okay, so if somebody can move the apologies, please. Moved, Councillor. Got that. Okay. There's no late items and any declarations of interest? No? Public excluded items, etc., will be coming up shortly as we go through the process of today's meeting. In public forum today, we have Dr. Bruce McCabe, who is wanting to speak to us, and we invite you to come forward and make your presentation, please.
Good morning, Chairman and Councillors. I appreciate this opportunity to address the committee today. With me, I've got Rob, Stephen, and Rob again. Roger. Right, thank you. I'm Dr. Bruce McCabe. I'm a resident of Aomakeroa and the formal representative and petitioner of record for the petition presented to this council in March 2025 concerning the location of the public toilet at Precious Family Reserve. The petition was signed by 376 reserve users and local residents. I speak today on behalf of the petition organisers and the community members who signed that petition. I am here at the specific invitation referred to in the Chief Ombudsman's final opinion on this matter. That opinion records that the council confirmed I would be welcome to speak at the next Projects and Monitoring Committee meeting if I wished to place on record my disagreement with certain statements made during the Projects and Monitoring Committee meeting of the 10th of June 2025. To be clear at the outset, I accept that the minutes are intended to record what occurred at a meeting, and I accept that the minutes record what was said. I'm not asking the committee to rewrite, debate, or impugn anyone's motives. My purpose today is narrow: to ensure that the public record of the 10th of June 2025 meeting is understood alongside the contemporaneous documentary and recorded evidence that contradicts 4 specific factual assertions made during that meeting. The history of how we came to be here is in itself relevant. On the 23rd of June 2025, 13 days before the 10th of June meeting, we wrote formally to the council identifying 4 specific statements made during that meeting which we considered to be factually incorrect. In support of those concerns, we provided documentary and recorded evidence relevant to each statement. On the 7th of August 2025, Mr. Robert Mitford Burgess, one of the petition organisers, requested to speak at the public forum of this committee's meeting on the 15th of August 2025 to place these concerns on the public record. That request was declined by the then chair of the committee. On the 26th of November 2025, two other petition organisers and I submitted a formal complaint to the Chief Executive under the Council's Code of Conduct and Local Government Act 2002. On the 19th of January 2026, we lodged a formal complaint with the Office of the Ombudsman under the Ombudsman's Act 1975. On the 30th of March 2026, the Ombudsman issued a provisional opinion. We responded on the 8th of April 2026, complaining that our complaint was not about changing what was said, but about the Council's refusal, once on notice of verifiable factual inaccuracies, to take a step to ensure that the official record is not misleading. So on the 23rd of April 2026, the Chief Ombudsman issued his final opinion, upholding the Council's position and confirming the Council's invitation for me to speak here today. That is a period of some 12 months from our first written submission. I note that in the intervening time, no corrective step of any kind was taken in relation to the official record of the 10th of June 2025. So why does the record matter? Well, the meeting of the 10th of June 2025 was a formal decision-making meeting of this committee. The decision taken to proceed with the installation of the toilet facility at the consented site was informed by the discussion that took place during the meeting. Statements made during that discussion were presented to councillors as statements of verifiable fact. Those statements remain part of the official public record. Where statements are presented as fact that are contradicted by documentary and recorded evidence, the integrity and reliability of the public record, not to mention the decision made, is questionable to say the least. It is for that reason, record integrity, good administration, and accurate decision-making, we have pursued this matter through the available channels. So the four statements at issue, I will address each of them individually. I will not name the former councillor who made them. I refer to the statements only because they appear in the official record and because their accuracy is contradicted by documentary and recorded evidence, which I am placing on record today. So the first statement, misrepresentation of the community board's position. At the meeting, it was stated that the Aomokara Community Board was, and quotes, generally in support of locating the toilet at option 3A. The community board chair subsequently confirmed to us that the board had not received, discussed, or adopted a position on any of the local location options before the committee's 10th of June meeting. There was no formal board resolution or recorded discussion supporting the position that was attributed to it. The practical consequence was that councillors deliberating on the 10th of June 2025 received an inaccurate representation of community governance support for a particular option. The second statement, dismissal of the 376 signature petition without evidential basis. At the meeting, the petition of 376 residents was described as, and I quote, incredibly flawed, skewed, and as containing misinformation and disinformation, and it was asserted that it should carry absolutely zero weight in this chamber. No evidence was produced at the meeting to support any of these statements. The petition was conducted in accordance with the Council's standing orders, as evidenced by the written guidance circulated by the same former member on the 3rd of March 2025. This inconsistency extends further. On the 17th of March, 3 days before the petition was formally presented to this committee on the 20th of March 2025, the same former councillor circulated to the full councillors group his own careful categorisation of 376 signatures and comments. This email was offered as a helpful summary for colleagues. It contained no suggestion that petition was flawed, skewed, or tainted by misinformation or disinformation. A councillor who genuinely regarded the petition as incredibly flawed would not, 3 days before its formal presentation, have provided colleagues with a methodological interpretive summary of its contents. A petition signed by 376 reserve users and local residents represents a significant expression of community concern. The unsubstantiated dismissal during a formal meeting, particularly in light of the same councillor's prior engagement with the petition, undermined proper consideration of legitimate community input. And the third statement, the false claim about the petition collection requirements. It was also stated that at the public meeting held on the 19th of February 2025, that petition organisers had been told, and I quote, quite clearly, to use independent people as to collect signatures. This is simply not true. The audio recording of this meeting contains no such instruction. Likewise, the written guidance on preparing a petition circulated on the 3rd of March imposes no such requirement. This is directly verifiable factual error contradicted by both the audio recording and written documents. And the fourth statement, namely the incorrect representation of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council's position. At the 10th of June Projects and Monitoring Committee meeting, it was stated that the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and I quote, will not allow a toilet near the beach due to future risks. A Bay of Plenty Regional Council subsequently confirmed to us that no such prohibition had been communicated to any person, and that a resource consent application for a location near the beach, including in areas potentially within a flood zone, would be assessed through normal consent processes. This inaccurate statement foreclosed consideration of potentially viable alternative locations during the committee's deliberations, and it misled councillors about the regulatory constraints applicable to those options. So in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I have placed these 4 matters on the public record of this committee, as contemplated by the Chief Ombudsman's letter of the 23rd of April 2026. In each case, documentary or recorded evidence contradicting the relevant statements existed and was available to Council when our concerns were first raised in June 2025. In each instance, we sought only proportionate corrective step, not to rewrite the historical record, but to ensure that it was not materially misleading. We remain of the view that good administration and the principles of transparent, accountable local government required a modest corrective response once the council was put on notice. We have recorded that view today. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we're quite prepared to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much. And yes, we're open to questions of clarification. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McCabe, and also to your submitters that are with you. You highlight what a pickle that meeting was that we had last time, and I'm grateful you've come here to clarify it. Could I ask 2 questions? The factual information, you will correct by tabling your information and that will be included in the minutes. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
We're going through it present.
Yes.
To make sure that we can actually, how this will be recorded for you, what the correct
so what
channels.
What you're saying, Mr. McCabe, Dr. McCabe, is that that should be included in the minutes and that the Ombudsman has said as such, correct?
Correct.
My second question is, what status will the petition have now? What should we do with these 300 and something signatures on this petition?
My opinion is that the committee should reconsider the validity of that petition and what was obviously supported. And if you look at the petition wording, and it's very clear. It's we, the undersigned, oppose the proposed construction of a public toilet in the Precious Family Reserve. That's at position 3A. This will negatively impact the reserve's natural ability, undermine the objectives in the reserve management plan, and impose unnecessary costs on ratepayers. So all of those people that signed that petition agreed with that statement. They may have included some comments to help people reading the document and provide further guidance for the council, but those comments do not overturn the fact that they signed a petition that they supported with a very clear mandate associated with it. And I think the council should give appropriate weight to that petition when it considers this matter again, because it's been opened up to public consultation. It should be given at least the weight that that public consultation, or should I say more of a survey, is going to be given. Thank you.
So you're saying that should be included in the present consultation that's out with the community?
I'm saying it should be considered in conjunction with the feedback from the current consultation. Yes.
Thank you.
It is basically, we're looking at how this actually fits into the record so that it can be a correct procedure to do so. Councillor Coxey.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe and gentlemen. Just a question around your petition with the 379 signatures. Where did you advertise and gather your signatures from in terms of community spread?
Perhaps Steve or Rob, you would like to answer that? The other one. Yeah.
Okay. We actually have provided a analysis of the petition. Yep, sure. We've provided an analysis of the petition. I'm trying to recall what it says, but the petition was gathered with a table, man table, with people sitting in the reserve. So it was targeted to reserve users, particularly those that don't have access to computers. It was also a man table at the Fresh Choice supermarket. There was some door-to-door knocking around the particular area around Precious Family Reserve. But in particular, it addressed the people that lived adjacent to the reserve. And one of the ladies there has lived in the reserve, I think now nearly 30 years, does not have an email address, but she felt very strongly and opposed the toilet being put where it is.
Thank you.
Mayor Denyer.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's worth pointing out, I'll get to a question, but worth pointing out that the petition was received and accepted by council. So that remains. But my question is, do you not recognise the factual errors in the petition that were there and have been pointed out to you? Doesn't mean the petition is worthless or invalid, but there were errors in there, and I think that was what the former councillor was trying to point out amongst other issues. And I think it's you know, if we're trying to set the record straight, then there's got to be a balanced look at that. There are other issues with the 4 statements of claim misrepresentation as well, but I'm not going to go there today. But I just want to get your view on whether you recognise there were errors in the petition, or the facts claimed around it at least.
Our mandate here today is very narrow. I wanted to put.
Thank you. I think that's the case. We've sort of gone off a little bit what the actual purpose of this you coming in today is about. But please, yes, answer, and it is a fairly important question.
Yeah, no, notwithstanding that, to answer your question, I would like you to state what those factual errors are.
I haven't got the information. I've given them to you in writing, I believe, so some time ago. But I don't have them to hand. I recall at least one of them was the distance between the toilet and the shore. That was at least one of them, which was just, it's just a factual number, which is demonstrably incorrect. Doesn't mean the whole petition is invalid. It's just there were some misrepresentations in that, maybe an oversight or whatever, but there were some misunderstandings perhaps.
Yeah, if I can respond to that, a matter of a few meters does not affect the statement that people were signing up to as part of that petition. And I ran through that earlier, Mr. Chairman. We opposed the proposed construction of a toilet in the Prestige Family Reserve at option 3A, and its negatively impacts on the reserve's natural beauty, undermines the objectives of the reserve management plan, and imposes unnecessary costs on ratepayers. So the difference between 190 and 200 metres is not a material error.
I think we must actually remember, councillors, that this is dealing with the issue that is being presented to us today, and recording something that unfortunately also the timing just didn't fit for our last meeting, and etc. So it's acknowledgement of the concern of the people coming forward and wanting acknowledgement, and in some form that the record has the ombudsman and their feelings recorded, attached, or whatever the method is that we can do it, because obviously it's not an actual minute, but how we actually record it is important to you. Is that fair for you?
That's absolutely the reason why we're here today.
Councillor Alvin.
Look, thanks, gentlemen. I think the problem I've been concerned about is the use of so-called incorrect process to invalidate fair and open debate is of deep concern to me, and particularly if individual councillors around this table have a specific view and they use that view to stymie opportunity as opposed to stymie debate. And there are two different things in that aspect. I've raised before the possibility.
Is there a question?
Yes, well, if you just give me a chance, there is a question. I've raised before, and I want to ask you whether you think it would be helpful to the public to have a just acceptable template on our website as to what is appropriate methodology for this council in dealing with the petition. So we remove these sorts of, there's a reasonable amount of flexibility, but I'd be just suggesting to you whether it would be helpful to have a form of template on the website that people could use that would remove this argument about the validity or the invalidity of a petition.
Does anyone want to?
Caught us all on the hop there, councillor Alvin.
It's an interesting question. I think it needs to be two-sided. I think if it's going to work, one guidance for the public wanting to present a petition, and the second, the way committee members actually deal with that petition, and it needs to, the petition needs to be dealt with on an objective basis. Subjective just does not cut it, because that view, that public view, is important to the public, and it should be important for the decision-making process of this council. So anything that's going to support the community making submissions, and secondly, providing guidance to committee members on how to approach a petition objectively will contribute to better decision-making.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce.
Apologies for lateness, and I was listening in on the way in, and obviously Bruce and I have also discussed this briefly. I'm interested to know why the attempt to bring this back into public forum before now was blocked.
Sorry,
Why was your attempt to bring this back to the public forum before blocked? Do you have any idea? Because you attempted to bring this back to the committee a lot earlier, right?
I cannot speak for the past chairman. I don't know what his reasoning was. Rob, was there any reasoning given in the email that you received?
No, there was no reason why I couldn't speak. In fact, I rewrote to the chairman at the time and said to him that I was disappointed with his response, and that I would ask him to reconsider writing to me to explain the concerns that I had. If you like, I can read to you my response to him, which will probably clarify what I was asking after. But before that, Deputy Mayor, your question before about the petition. In the current process of consultation that the council are now going to go through, it indicates clearly that a petition is not, we cannot supply a petition within this consultation process. I've been in communication with Matt Potton, and I had a very clear response that the petition or any information that has been gathered relating to this consultation process will be considered, and that included the petition. So Matt, thank you. I think it's Matt, thank you for that. That clarified that situation. Am I correct there?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, good. So the petition has now been considered to be available as information relating to this latest consultation process. It's 376 people who are now going to get their say considered and validated within this next consultation process. It's a significant amount, or a significant number of people, users of the reserve, who will now be considered to have had a say that will be recorded and used in this consultation process. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that.
Okay, I think we've basically gone around the houses here, and
Turn yours off, mate. Yeah. It's a question for staff, because I'm really concerned that a chairperson of a committee can take a decision like that affects the whole council. The whole council didn't even know about it. And I'd really like clarification, if not right now, but at some stage, on what powers the chairperson of the committee has without review to reject public forum, which is supposed to be reasonably open slather, right? Because that to me is, this should never have gone to the Ombudsman. It should have been resolved at council. Bruce, Dr. McCabe should have been heard a long time ago.
We will take a look at the standing orders and come back to you from governance.
I can help you right there. Standing order 15.2, a speaker, discretion to decline to hear a speaker or terminate a presentation if a speaker is repeating views presented by an earlier speaker at the same public forum. The speaker is criticising elected members and or staff. The speaker is being repetitious, disrespectful or offensive. The speaker has previously spoken on the same issue. I suspect that may be the point here, but we'll see. And the matter is subject to legal proceedings, and then also subject to a hearing, including hearing of submissions, quasi judicial, other stuff. So if essentially, if a matter has been brought to a committee before a public forum, it's quite normal to refuse repeated hearings on that.
Again, I'd like a staff to have a look at the circumstances. You've given a number of things there, many of which don't apply because they're talking about what they do when they're in front of the council or committee, rather than a predetermined decision to reject someone before they even open their mouth. So if staff could come back, that'd be very helpful, please.
I'm reluctant to continue with this, to be honest. We're half an hour now. It's like we're relitigating it again as we did only a month ago. Deputy Mayor.
Could I just make one comment? I just want to thank the people for coming in because it will improve the process that we go through. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. And they've highlighted issues and we can be better for their advice. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, well, just so you're aware, we have gone through and got it clear that your documents will be tabled as part of this meeting and referring to the previous meetings, which it does basically anyway. So it is definitely now being attached to a minuted meeting for it to go forward and be considered as part of the process from here on in. And I do also appreciate you coming in to, as the Deputy Mayor said, maybe just bring us a little bit into consideration of what happens with things and how at times we need to be informed of some things and maybe we haven't, and our process. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker in public forum is Russell Squire. And Russell is going to be speaking to us about the unnamed pond in Katikati.
That working? Good. I'd like to thank you for having me here today. Very much appreciated. My name's Russell Squire. I'm representing a group that is, we're racing radio controlled yachts in what we're calling Highfields Pond in the middle of Katikati. Over the last year, we've started quite a large group of us, very active, but as waterweed has become more and more prevalent in the pond, it's becoming progressively harder to sail and people are dropping out of the activity. We're trying to sort it out ourselves with people wading in and dragging it, but it's not very effective. I understand that there has been a pond project put to council already, and it's been considered and declined. And I'd like to provide a bit more information so that hopefully we can clarify a few things and maybe look at a couple of other options. The initial proposal was a two-part component. One was CapEx, which was quite a significant jetty in the order of $40,000, as well as an OPEX component, which was introducing grass carp to graze the waterweed. And that also had an ongoing maintenance component leading on for a further 5 years. At the moment, I can accept that probably the jetty in its current state, we could look at cheaper ones, but the current state was, as proposed, was probably a bridge too far, to pardon the pun. I'd like to stick with the grass carp as an option. Now, grass carp have been in New Zealand since the late 1960s, and in this area in the Waihi Beach Reservoir since 1975. It was found from research papers when they studied the effect of the carp that they actually targeted the very weeds that we're actually having problems with at Highfields Pond. So it looks like a great option. They're also an acknowledged control technique they use widespread around New Zealand. Tauranga City Council is probably the obvious example here. They're in most of the lakes, freshwater lakes around Tauranga. Grass carp are sterilised. They don't breed. And the only escapees that have been documented got into the Waikato River some decades ago, and they did not breed. They disappeared and have never been seen. So there has been a lot of science behind the process. There are alternatives to the grass carp. We can use herbicide, diquat or endothol. If you really want to do that, you're looking at repeated applications. They're not great chemicals, and there'll always be the argument of when to apply it. Mechanical dredging occurs somewhere at some places around the country. There's a machine called a swamp monster that basically goes across and bulldozes all the weed out. But as you can imagine, that's pretty messy and would be repeated applications. Or the council can choose to abandon the work on the pond and not do anything. I'd like to point out that the council has already in the last few years spent thousands of establishing that pond. It's a beautiful pond. There's landscaping all around it, and be ashamed to see that wasted. Just a few values of the pond itself. As I said, it's quite a beautiful little pond in the middle of town. It's a great relaxing spot along the Haiku Walkway. Anecdotal evidence is that property values have increased significantly, or some properties have gone up by $250,000. That should work quite favourably in the term of rates as well, if you like. And there's even photos of us racing yachts in real estate promotions from nearby residences. So it's a good thing. There is potential, if we can get this pond sorted, for it to be used for other activities, water sports, water education. Like to think we've built it, they will come. And I guess for me, probably the whole aspect of the racing is that it's a competitive sport for mature people. There's not many things in Kerikeri that we can do in public, have fun, have a laugh, be out there. Everything else is bowls, tennis, croquet, it's all hidden away. So this is an important part of the community. It's also becoming a spectator sport. People are actually timing their walks so that they see us racing. It's quite fun. So I think I've circulated some things for the council. I guess the key one is the options paper. The current one was put to council, and I understand they were quoted $66,000. That included the jetty as well as New Zealand Waterways that manages the carp in a managed agreement for them to introduce it, and then they would continue in a management contract for another 4 years after that. There's an option too, we can leave the jetty out of it and come back with just the carp and let New Zealand Waterways Restoration manage that as a contract. An estimate of about $15,000 to get the carp in for the first year, and $5,000 to $6,000 thereafter for them to come and monitor the carp, monitor the effect. There is a third option. I've checked it out with New Zealand Waterways as to where we would actually buy the carps. We've still got legal process to get permission to introduce them. That would be in the order of $11,000. And then they would be our carp, they'd be our council's responsibility, but New Zealand Waterways have said they would happily engage with us to check the pond occasionally and potentially we could have an ad hoc requirement if work needed to be done. So I guess I'd like the opportunity for the council to consider a couple more options as far as protecting that pond.
Thank you. So we have questions from the mayor.
Okay, just a couple, I will make a couple of comments and perhaps a question. So look, at our annual plan deliberations, council was fully supportive of this. It's just the cost involved. I think, well, certainly my view is that we're happy that you can build a jetty. And I'm sure there's some handy gentlemen or indeed ladies in your group that could handle such a thing. And I just think, and it, costing tens of thousands just seems over the top if it's going to be some volunteers and some wood. Moving on to the carb, can you explain why the cost is still quite a lot and what ongoing management is needed? Because at least at a very superficial level, one can imagine buying some fish for a modest amount of money, away they go, and that's kind of it. So perhaps you can explain why well, there's quite a lot of variability in the cost as well, but at least in even the very cheapest option is $4,500, which seems quite a lot for, I don't know how many fish you need, but yeah.
It's so there is, I guess the big chunk of the cost is actually getting the permit to get them in. So it does require, because they're an exotic fish, they have to be introduced. Requires Department of Conservation permit. So there's a permit fee there. There's costs incurred in consultation. Iwi are a very strong consideration. DOC defers to iwi in many ways. And there's also the fear, I guess, of the association with the grass carp and koi carp. This is the biggest issue that around this fish, is that it has carp in its surname. And everybody runs it up from koi carp. So much of this cost is really around getting the authority to release them. And then there's, for New Zealand Waterways, it's a matter of just keeping an eye on things really. So they want to be able to determine whether the right stocking rate of fish. You've got to think of this like a farm. So, and these guys are the farming specialists. So they're putting a school of fish into a pond. They want to ensure that there's enough food in there for the fish to be maintained, but they don't want too many fish in there that it actually makes the pond barren and makes it hard for water edge vegetation to continue, because they will try and get everything they can. And even fish starving is not a good look. Alternatively, they don't put enough in, then we actually get the water weeds coming back. So there's the expertise. We're largely playing for the expertise.
I mean, it does feel, last comment, and I'll let someone else speak, but it does feel like this is a well-trodden path, both in terms of seeking permission, getting permits, and stocking rates. You know, this expertise must exist, and you know, it seems excessive to pay lots of money for something that already has been done before. But anyway, that's me.
Yeah, I don't want to speak too ill of DOC, having worked for them for 8 years, but they are very risk averse. And the idea of, and every time carp comes up, there are people that are philosophically opposed to it. The idea of introduced fish, despite all the science and despite all of their own science, unfortunately, saying that there is very few problems.
Yeah, I mean, I have done species reintroduction through DOC permits, and it's not cost a penny. So there are ways of doing it. Maybe it's more complex. But anyway, I'll have that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce.
So thanks for coming in. Thanks for the very clear table. I'm a little bit confused because we've been talking about this at the community board level and individually for a year or more.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, the group said, we need the council's help to do the permit and we'll do the rest.
Yeah.
And then it became, when I got the chairman of the community board into trouble by suggesting he put that in his chairman's report that the group was willing to pay and we just needed to support it.
Yeah.
He got the message back, oh, actually, no, we're only willing to support part of it. Yeah. And the council would need to do the rest. And now we've got to the end of May, we got to a full council payment of megabucks, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, given where we started, where the group was willing to pay the money and just needed a bit of admin support to get the ad hoc application in, what's changed from that?
So there's two things. One is that it's a council resource. So council has to have the permits, put in the application, own the fish, or have the contract with New Zealand Waterways. That's a requirement anyway, unfortunately. When we approached council, they said it was actually a lot of discussion because there has been work done in the background over the last couple of years. They said, let's put this together as a project to council. So I guess we said it was like our offer to assist with fundraising was that let's put that aside for the time being. We'll wait and see how it goes with the application to do the whole thing. We have always said that we're willing to try and find some money to help reduce the cost. And even yesterday, talking to a couple of the sailors, we said, yeah, let's see what we can do. But I guess the original proposal was put as a complete thing for council funding.
No, the original proposal was for council to assist the group and the group would fund. I guess what I would like to see, and I'd like to know from the group, is how much they're willing to put in.
Yeah.
Because the idea that, oh, well, if the council will do it, we won't put anything in, isn't really a tenable approach. For what is a project that's largely to benefit the group. So, I would like to know either today or another day, just how much money the group's willing to put in. And then the council should look at the residual rather than the council looking at it first and then maybe the group doing a little bit of the residual, which is turning around what was the original idea.
Mayor,
I think it's a wonderful use for a stormwater pond to have floating yachts for everybody to relax with that sport. But you must be expecting these fish to eat an awful lot. Is that the only option that's there for the community to actually get rid of this grass in the pond?
Well, as I mentioned, there are those other options. So there is herbicide, there's mechanical dredging. They are the two other options, both temporary and you don't avoid the problem. Benefit of the fish, they eat their own body weight in food every day.
Yes, can it not though, this weed be harvested out of that pond? Rather than spraying it and having fish to actually eat it?
excuse me, he did mention dredging.
No, just netting, sir.
I'm not sure. We've tried dragging it, and you can pull a certain amount out, but the problem is that as you do that, it actually ends up spreading the weed further because you don't do a very effective. And every little strand of this weed ends up other places in the pond. So you potentially exacerbate the problem by dragging it and agitating it. It's something we've noticed already. We actually tried a couple of months ago to, we had people in waders and wetsuits and dragging wire ropes and so forth across to try and break the weed off and collecting it all up on surfboards and so forth. And we are sailing with that now because winter's slowed everything down. But even now we're finding that as you're sailing along, suddenly your boat slows down and you find there's a little bit of loose weed. The benefit of the fish is they basically target everything that's floating, everything that's out there.
Councillor Daly.
Russell, I find your report quite fascinating, to be honest, and maybe might have taken a different view at our council meeting if I'd known this, but just in terms of the breeding, you say they're not breeders, but it's the report says they're unlikely to breed, but and that Tikawhata pond where they have 15 fish to control that size pond, what for your 4,400 to buy the ones that you're proposing, how many fish are you suggesting for the Highfields pond?
That is in the order of the numbers. I think it's 15 to 30, something like that. It's under 50 fish anyway.
Is there an initial compatibility, a bit of natural die out before they establish, or are they pretty resilient?
One of the benefits of the pond is it actually has a screened discharge. And when the New Zealand Waterways personnel arrived, they looked at the discharge point and they said the benefit of this pond is we'll actually put relatively mature fish in. So they would target putting in 5 to 10-year-old fish, which are in the order of 10 kilos already. So if you're thinking of a 10-kilo snapper, that's a fairly decent sized fish. They eat their body weight every day. So that's kind of the idea of having a few large fish to have the control effect.
And I see the Ngāti Hei concerns were about the possibility of escape. So the nature of the Highfields pond doesn't sort of lend itself to escape possibilities.
So it's an isolated pond. It has a screened outlet. So that's why the big fish, looking at the screen, they go, well, they won't go out there anyway. The pond is not overtopped, and they also it goes into brackish water, and these carp don't survive in brackish water. So we've got multiple safeguards around there.
There's
and also even the only evidence I've seen of recorded escapees, they didn't breed. So we haven't got any evidence of them breeding. They are sterilised before they are introduced.
Yeah, that's the comment you said in your initial. You said they were sterilised, but the report says they're unlikely to breed. But yeah, I mean,
I guess this is a Jurassic Park type thought that they're sterilised, but you can't say never.
Yeah.
Sterilisation is a chemical process. So
and there's also concern about upstream migration, but I'm not familiar with the Highfields pond. Is that all stormwater off houses, but there is some stream tributaries?
There's no significant stream upstream of it. It's all stormwater runoff.
Councillor Alvin.
Thanks very much for coming in. And what I do appreciate is the enthusiasm you guys put into providing multi-use for some of these facilities. My understanding is the pond is suitable for the job we want it to do. So I don't have any problem with your fish and all that sort of thing and your use of it. What I do have a bit of difficulty with is, how do I reconcile? I'm asking you this question: how do I reconcile as a representative of the ratepayers if we've cut a whole lot of money out of our budget for roading purposes for community boards, and we're now going to say we're going to spend $4,000 on some fish? I mean, do we expect the next time that we've got a park that we'd like to release a whole lot of butterflies in and we're going to spend $4,000 on that? You know, I'm not being a pain, but the reality of it is I would love you guys to do this. I'd love you to do it. I think it's a great initiative, but at what point do we have to, how would you feel on the other side of the fence if we were saying, no, we've substituted fish for roading?
So I guess come back to the mention I had before of thinking of carp like sheep. One other point you could see is you could say compare the carp to lawnmowers. So how much do we pay for mowing council sports grounds? So this is a sport. This is the substrate underneath that sport. So this is maintaining an activity. It's also a resource you've got already. So you've got a pond. If you don't do anything, it's going to go backwards, and you're going to basically end up with unhappy ratepayers. So this is my idea. My thinking here is that this is a way of actually improving a sports facility as well as a recreational, aesthetic, scenic. So it's, yes, there is money involved in that. And that's why when I first heard the cost, I went, well, no wonder the council said go away. And that's why I think we need to look at some better options that are more affordable.
So my understanding was that we've been told that the effectiveness of the pond was not affected by this weed. So if in fact the effectiveness of this pond for its purpose is affected by the increasing weed, then I think that's a great approach for you to address it on, that actually it is a remedial and advantageous for us in terms of the maintenance long-term of the pond. And it just so happens to have an extra use. My understanding was that it didn't affect the utility of the pond from our stormwater purposes. Now, that might be wrong.
Right, so for stormwater purposes, I guess my history, I'm an environmental advisor. I've been in mining companies since 1990. And one of the big things is stormwater management around mining companies around Australasia. You don't have vegetation in stormwater ponds. That is just a no-no. The main effect of main way stormwater ponds work is by capacity and by having retention of the water and having it drop out. The danger with vegetation is you end up with channels through the vegetation. And also they alter the whole dynamic of the pond. They actually start reducing your capacity of your pond in itself.
Councillor Joyce?
Just on that point, are you aware that the stormwater engineers don't want any water in there at all? They would prefer it was a dry bed doing stormwater only.
Yeah, it's
Not saying that's where we are or where we should go. I'm just saying when we talk about stormwater not wanting weeds, actually the stormwater guys don't want water at all.
So it's an interesting one, the stormwater, because we've also had many ponds, managed many ponds that have a residual pond level. Now there's no sediment going into that pond anymore. The Highfield subdivision has been completed. So the issue now really is, if anything, is probably about eutrophication. So let's go away from eutrophication. And the problem with the weeds is they're actually exploiting that and actually making it worse. So my argument would be, if you want to have the pond empty, it's going to be a bit of an eyesore and you're probably going to drop your real estate values all around that area. Yeah.
We seem to have exhausted the questions there, Russell. Oh, sorry. Councillor Coxhead, sorry.
Very, very quick one. Thank you for coming in and sharing your expertise. It's actually been really fascinating and really helpful. So thanks for that. We talked about the sterilised carp, 10, what did you say, 10 kgs and 50 of them-ish?
Yeah.
So they will need replacing, won't they? How long does a carp live for and how much? I mean, obviously it's 4,000 for 50-ish, so reasonable cost to replace as well and ongoing. What's the expectation there?
I don't believe the replacement cost is all that high. I think a lot of this is about New Zealand Waterways basically recouping the costs of their work. So the fish themselves are a relatively minor part. So a lot of this is about getting them in the door, getting the fish in, and then getting replaced. They spend a lot of time, as you've seen from that Ngāti Hei submission, fighting stigma behind the carp. Once the fish are in, there's less issues. And they live, I'm trying to recall, I think it's 20 to 30 years. So it's not something that we're diving into having to replace too quickly.
I would imagine there's the usual perhaps predatory risks as well, you know, potentially dogs, etc.
Humans are the only.
Yeah. I am thinking of those two.
So that's the other benefit of them suggesting mature fish, is that you don't have any shag type predation, which you would from smaller fish. Eels, they live quite happily alongside. They have different diets, and when they're big enough, they leave each other alone. There is a couple of unproven sideline effects as well, is that if we can get the weeds down and keep them down, we run the less risk of ending up with swans, Canada geese in there, which is something that is on my radar for a pond like that. And I don't think anybody would want that there. So if we can keep things like that down, it could actually be quite good for pest control.
Excellent, very compelling. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And one very last question there, Councillor.
Look, I'm sorry, Russell.
Hey, right, it's fine.
But when you mentioned they live alongside eels quite comfortably, does the reduction in habitat from the carp cause any issues for the eels? Or the eels are quite comfortable without all that vegetation?
To my understanding, they're quite comfortable. There are some species, like one report I read was cockabullies breed prolifically when carp are introduced, something to do with the change in the habitat, but they're actually a food source for eels. So yes, it will change the dynamics, but all the research says that it's not harmful to it. And even trout and things like that, they happily live alongside because of their focus on vegetation. Everything else tends to be on insects or plant or animal life.
Right, this time. So thank you very much,
Thank you
Russell,
very
for
much.
bringing that forward. I think actually I ought to mention something to councillors, just as we look further forward as to what's happening. We're a growing area. We have a lot more housing planned, and the requirements for stormwater and retention is going to be part of that. And maybe we've got to look a little bit further forward as to how that's going to be managed. Maybe this is one of the ways that we should be looking or considering it, looking a step or two down the road, because we will have more retention ponds. And I love the idea of not having the geese and swans, I can tell you, living in Athame. Anyway, thank you so much. I think you've covered it very well. I guess where this will go is you've enlightened us as councillors as to what's needed. You've taken $65,000 plus out of the question as such and broken it into steps. And you are more than happy to work within that with us. And you've given us something to consider perhaps as we move into the long-term plan. Because as you've said, how that, if this goes through and happens for us with the carp, et cetera, in the pond, it's how it's managed going forward, and likening it to mowing a playing field is not unreasonable. So it's part of where we'd have to look at internal budgets, et cetera. So I think you've come at an opportune time, just unfortunately too late for the annual plan, but let's see how we work. Thank you very much.
And just in closing, I'd like to invite anybody here who's interested in giving a go or seeing what it's about, Thursday afternoons and Saturday afternoons. One of our racers is a bit of fanatic. He has on the order of 30 yachts. He normally brings 2 or 3 down at a time. Many of us have got 2, and we'd be happy to loan one to a person to have a very enjoyable afternoon. And as one person said, it's a great way to waste an afternoon. But I said, did you think about work? Did you think about family? Did you think about money? Did you think about anything else but racing around a pond, chasing people, chasing other yachts? And he goes, yeah, completely forgot about it. So if you want a day to unwind and forget, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Have an easier trip home.
And don't forget the men's shed in Te Puke as another option for older men looking for something to do with themselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we better bring this to an end. Thank you very much. Okay, I think as it's taken us over an hour to get through these 2 public forum speakers, we better have a morning tea and then get back here 1:45 and get on with business. Thank you very much. w- Okay, we now move to pages 6 to 22, which are the minutes of our last meeting. If somebody is prepared to move and second those minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Coxhead. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
I'd just like to speak to my minutes. I was just really concerned. And I made these notes before those gentlemen came in this morning, but I think what occurs to me out of the minutes and the process we went through over that particular issue, that I think we need to be much more aware about our standing order requirements. And so I think I'm just expressing the view that I think we need to be a bit more careful about compliance with those standing orders. The last thing we want is to have continuing complaints of breaches of democracy, or our own breaches of standing orders, or us using those sort of things to defeat it. So it just was an expression of concern relating to those minutes and those sets of circumstances.
You're referring to more openness in how we operate in general.
I just think we need to be more careful in this increasingly sort of litigious environment where, you know, this is a council that's gone on and done things in a very practical and pragmatic way, which has worked really, really well. And I'm just expressing the concern that that might have changed a bit, and we may need to just be a bit more alert to some of those issues about breach of technical process. And that's all. I don't like that. I much prefer the way we deal with it, but I think we just need to be aware of it a bit more. That's all.
Thank you. Mayor wishes to speak as well.
Yeah, I think it's important that if there is an issue you believe with the way the meeting's run, you raise a point of order and it's dealt with at the time. It's not really appropriate to try and relitigate it after the meeting. If you have an issue, raise it at the time, and that's pretty well it. If you rewatch carefully any of our meetings, you could probably pick a hole somewhere in some standing order, because there's complexity there, and we're all human. But really, the true test for me is whether the people in the room have felt they've been able to be heard and get a fair process. And I think that's what we do pretty well. And if you have a problem, raise it as a point of order.
Thank you.
It just raises a good point, and I've got a couple of questions if I'm allowed to, since we're on this one. But is there a statutory timeframe for when we have to publish our minutes for
Point of order,
meeting?
Mr. Chairman. The minutes we should ask if the minutes are correct. It's not a time to debate them. If there's anything there that's wrong, that's when we have some comment. But otherwise, we're just relitigating everything again. It's not good enough. And I add, this is an entirely different council from the last time.
My other point was, if I may, at some point, I would like some clarification on a comment that was made during the public forum and reference to the CEO, and I just missed the subtlety of that particular question relating to invalidation of the petition and ongoing in the new consultation, and a
Excuse me,
reference to the CEO.
Councillor Daly, this is really about the minutes of the last meeting at this point, but I understand what you're trying to ask. I actually am not sure where we fit that within the agenda as it is at present, but I think it's actually a fair comment. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just really we're dealing with the minutes.
Typically, that would be something that we would be able to deal with through exec forum after a meeting. I don't see that we have an exec forum today, but perhaps we can deal with it at the next exec forum that we do have.
Would that satisfy you, sir?
It's fine. I just wanted to raise it while I remembered.
So if we make a note of that for the next exec forum, that's a good place to start. Thank you. Thank you again for that as well, Bradley. So I'll go back and put the motion again then about the minutes. They've been moved and seconded. So all those in favour? To the contrary? Thank you. Carried indeed. Okay, so now we move to pages 23 to 50, which is the Katikati wastewater outfall replacement business case that has been put up for us to read. I hope you've all had a good read of it. It's quite a lengthy document, but actually very thorough from what I've seen in general as to its broadness of how it's tried to look at things, but I'm sure there's plenty of questions.
Just before we hand over to Carly to introduce this, councillors, this is an example of a business case that didn't necessarily cost you much money. Carly was by and large the main author of the business case as it stands.
Thank you. And Coralie, please.
Cool. Good morning, everybody. So the purpose of this paper is for council to consider progressing the next stages of the Katikati outfall project. Council has previously endorsed the Future Directions report, which proposes ocean outfall as the best long-term disposal option for Katikati. That there is still a requirement on council to do wider engagement on that, either through the long-term plan or the water services strategy. What this paper is proposing and the business case is proposing that council progresses with an ECI, which is an early contractor engagement process, in a two-stage approach where we go out, we find a contractor to help with the design and the consent. At that stage, we'll be able to push pause once we've done wider community consultation and do a second business case or a follow-up business case that considers the actual physical construction of that. There is underlying risk with that, in that if council progresses with the consenting and the design at this stage and the community suggests that a different disposal option, there's sunk costs with that. We're proposing it's still the best outcome because of the cost of maintaining that pipeline. At the moment, it's costing council upwards of towards $600,000 a year. So considering that it's prudent to continue on with the path that council's already started on. I will just also comment, yesterday we caught up with Kevin Lavery, who's the CEO of the new Waters Authority. So we're starting to engage with him on any key significant projects, this one being one of them. We shared the paper with him, he's read it, and his comments were that he feels that the recommendations in the paper are doing the right thing. We're dealing with the immediate risk and he's comfortable with the risk that we've put forward. We did invite him to come along as well. He wasn't available, but he's happy with what we're proposing in the paper. We are going forward, we will be engaging with him earlier and getting his comments directly in the paper. And unfortunately, the timing just didn't work out for this one.
Thank you. Any other discussion as we go? Councillor Joyce.
Thanks, Coralie. You've answered my first question, and thank you for saying that in future the Water Services Company comment will be in here, because it's a bit misleading for the public to say this will go into the long-term plan project process when actually it won't, because our long-term plan won't cover this, will it?
Yeah, so the legislative requirements around engagement on this one are quite tricky. We are considering whether we should begin early engagement on this option through the LTP, and then it will transition to the water services strategy just to start getting that community feedback.
Right, but the cost and the project itself won't be managed through the LTP process. So we just, yeah. I noticed you also talk about early engagement with regulators. So that includes Te Mata Arawai and the Commerce Commission. Have we got any preliminary thoughts back from them at all?
I can't comment on Te Mata Arawai because I can't remember. We have received some information back from Commerce Commission just that they're interested in being kept informed.
Okay. Councillor Alvin.
Look, firstly, that was a really good report, so I appreciated it. Thank you very much. And you've answered the question about the engagement of the Water CCO. What I'm concerned about is the risk about the pipeline over Matakana Island, and I'm sure you've given some thought to that, but I'm interested in management's view of the degree of risk that might exist there. Are we just deferring something inevitable? Because that would be a major issue if something happened on Matakana. So I was just interested in what what decisions staff had made with respect to being able to defer that part of the pipeline and the rationale for it.
So there's no actual formal decision on that. The intent has been to focus on the part of the pipeline that's been failing regularly, the harbour one. As we've worked through the kind of feasibility design for that, it is showing some risk in the pipeline across Matakana Island, which we're just starting to flag up now. There are operational ways around that. The risk, but it's still, there's two key things with that. It will restrict the flow through the harbour section. So you won't be able to use that pipe that you build to its full capacity because you can't put the pressure on the Matakana Island section. And there'll be some like extra little things that we would do now operationally that wouldn't be usable in the future. So we are suggesting, we don't need a decision on that today. We can consider that through the sort of ECI process, but we are suggesting that be considered at some point as if we do the Matakana Island section as well. You will still have the third section, which is the section from Matakana to the ocean, that doesn't have the same level of risk as the Matakana Island section.
Thank you. Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
How long was the existing line meant to last? It was 2030 something, wasn't it?
2038. So they typically have a 65-year life. So our consent goes out to 2038. Our discharge consent, that was the expected life of that pipeline.
So Coralie, it's sad that we've actually got to do this, but I can see it's inevitable. There's no other option, is there?
Not really, no. I mean,
so with the local Matakana people, they've been heavily involved all the way through?
Yes, so we engage with them through Te Ohu Waiora that we meet frequently. They've been heavy stakeholders in this project and heavily engaged.
And tell me, is the distance from Matakana Island out to the sea, what is that now?
Currently it's 600 metres. They're proposing to extend it another, I can't remember, I think about 500 metres beyond that.
And that's satisfactory to you?
That's what's being put in the future directions report and endorsed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Denyer.
I was just happy to move when the time comes. Is the time now?
I think so it is. So we're talking the
1 to 6. Yep.
1 to 6. Okay, it has been moved by Mayor Denyer and seconded by Councillor Joyce.
So I'll just say, I think we need to just get on with this. It's been, excuse the incredibly bad pun, in the pipeline for many years now. And no, it wasn't. It has been in the pipeline for many years. We've done such a lot of work to get to this stage, and the pipeline is failing pretty fast and badly. So we just need to get on with it. So I'm in favour.
Sorry, Coralie, just the comment in the report that there has been no failures in the Matakana Island section. Are you actually able to check if there are failures or not? Because you could have a leak there that you would never know about. So the only way you could test it, I mean, you can't do dye testing in sand or in the earth across the island, but is it possible through pressure testing, or is it you just wouldn't know, would you?
You could check it. So we could go do some physical inspections. We do know that's in a better condition than the section through the harbour.
I guess it's not moving around like it does in the sea.
Yeah, so the magic ball that Rodney's referring to, that covered some of Matakana. I'm not sure if it went the whole way along, but that showed it was all good.
Deputy Mayor.
I support the recommendations, but I just want to say how frustrating it is to be a governance group around the table. We make decisions in the best interests of the public, and here we are years later with leaking pipe, and we've got no alternative but to do it all again. So when the challenge will be making sure that whatever we do is of a quality that can actually last. And I'm sure, Coralie, you will be looking at those pipelines so carefully to make sure that the community actually has something that it can be proud of and rely on. So what on earth happened that we can't make it last until 2030 something is really quite deplorable. And but it's past decisions, looking at materials and assuming that what the manufacturer says is correct. And so our challenge will be making sure that whatever challenge we have, that we make it last the distance that's required. That's the challenge for us. So it's going to be expensive, and I can't see with Katikati growing, that's really a question as well. Will it cope with the growth of Katikati?
Yes, so we'll be designing it for the growth of Katikati as well. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Joyce.
Thanks again for this. I think the mayor put it very well. We're going to get on and do it. The risk is huge. The magic ball referred to, which is not its proper name, was a ball they put through the pipe to check it. I fully understand you couldn't go the whole way because you'd lose it in the ocean. But it was new technology for New Zealand, and it was actually very useful to see the condition of the pipe from the inside. In terms of the Deputy Mayor's comments, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but apparently it was an early installation of PVC piping, and the wear and tear has been an issue for that generation of PVC, and that's why we are where we are. I'd also praise the people of Matakana. It's not that long ago they were threatening to blow the pipeline up, a couple of decades perhaps. We've been through an exhaustive process. The mayor led part of that along with Tangata Whenua, and I'm now the co-chair of that group as well. They've come a long way. They've come a long way because, and so is the pipeline, to be fair. It used to pump out raw sewage into the ocean many moons ago, and that was obviously very distressing for people living on the island. It's not raw sewage anymore, but they have come a long way. We've looked at options like forestry, distribution on land, pasture distribution on land, but at the end of the day, those are actually more risky. The risk is small, but the impact of something on land failing would be huge for our Tauranga Moana, our harbour. So it's come a long way. I know we've probably given the speech before, and we can probably give it again on a future occasion. So it's good to see that we're moving ahead. I am wary of including the consultation with long-term plan because I think that sends the wrong message to the public. Perhaps it needs to be done separately because it's going to become a waters company project. Perhaps we should do it as a joint consultation with the new waters company, once it has the capacity to help, because obviously it's a bit of a one-man band at the moment. But, you know, I'd just be wary of including the long-term plan because that causes confusion in the public's mind about who's going to be responsible for this project in future and how it will be paid for. It'll be paid for by the public, but it won't be paid out of your rates. It'll be paid out of your water charges in future. So let's be really clear about that one.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor, do you wish to have a reply?
Nothing really further to add. I think it's been said. We can consider the consultation and how that works with the over the next wee while, and as the water organisation is stood up. But thank you for raising that.
Okay, so we have a motion before us that has been moved and seconded, and it is for basically the whole recommendation from 1 to 6. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, it is carried. Thank you very much. We now move to page 51. Landscaping of a Mokoroa. Okay, Annalie.
Hi,
you're happy
yes.
to get going on this one. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. I've got Des next to me from the transportation team, and together we'll be talking to this report, talking about capital costs versus maintenance costs regarding the two options that we've highlighted in the report. Before we start, I would just like to refer you to paragraph 6, please. Forgive me, I don't have the page numbers in front of me, but I realized that in the cost implications table, where we talk about the capital cost per square meter for option 2, I've put in $48 to $60 per square meter, but that's limited to option 1, in case someone picked that up. Yes, so that's a mistake on my part. So the costs will be significantly lower than that. But that figure was worked out on the $600,000 cost of the plan provided by Boffa Miskel, if we were to go ahead and plant to that extent. So the report that we've got in front of you this morning is either we, and that's our recommendation too, that we continue with planting along Makaroa Road as per what we've currently got underway and have planned, regarding where we can plant practically without having to dig up any concrete that's just recently been laid, or having to put in any sort of drain subsoil to make sure that if we do dug up any of the concrete to do some planting, that we don't do any damage to the pavement. We did have a meeting a couple of weeks ago where Boffa Miskel presented their plan, and we did try to highlight council's concerns. Obviously, there's the cost implication, the maintenance implication, the fact that we don't have any maintenance budget to uphold the maintenance to that extent. And then obviously that we would have to dug up newly poured concrete that we've just delivered as part of a design that had been approved, where it's 3-meter wide paths. And obviously it's a very busy road. We've got all of our services in there. We need to take that into consideration too. And then also the type of plants that are to be planted, which is why we have landed with our option to not continue with the planting to the extent as per the Boffa Miskel design.
Any questions for clarification here? Okay, we have Councillor Cox here.
I actually have quite a few questions, so do you just want me to handle them one at a time?
Yep.
Yeah. Because I was at that meeting with Daryl Scott, Boffa Miskel, and yourselves, obviously, and a few other people whose names escape me. But anyway, so firstly, when was the concrete laid?
Oh, just recently. We've just
How
completed.
recently?
The last couple of weeks.
So since that meeting?
No, before that meeting. But I
Okay.
mean, we were still working in that area, completing all of the other bits and bobs of that
Okay,
project.
so the Prole Road Reserve down the bottom there, there's a whole reserve done down there. I have asked for the cost of that and the cost of the artwork down there, but I haven't been given a figure for that yet. Does anyone here have the information?
I can source that information for you and find it for you and get it to you.
That would be good, because what I'm thinking is we've got an entrance way into a major subdivision, which is about to get much larger with very little green space. And I do not want us to scrimp on this. I want that entrance to be exceptional, and it doesn't have to all be done at once. So next question, we've got a full summary of costs for option 2, according to this. So you're saying the 48 to 60 per meter square is incorrect for this, but we've got maintenance costs here, we've got annual maintenance, we've got planting extent, we've got CapEx, which was provided by Boffa Miskel, and totally up for, negotiation. And they're not necessarily touting for business either. This is just a rough idea of what it could cost. But we don't seem to have the same information for option 1. So we've got no idea what our ongoing maintenance cost is, or what the plan even is there, or the total cost.
Well, the.
What's the total cost for this?
No, but what we've put in the report is that we would maintain it as per our current service levels of service as far as maintenance is concerned. So we would do planting where we currently have planting along stage 2, for example, where we in the embankments on both sides of the road where there's significant planting. That planting will be done as part of what we are proposing because that's what we currently have. We are not proposing that we put in new beddings, dug up newly laid concrete, put in new beddings for new planting beyond what's currently there. We are proposing that it be done in a practical way as we currently
So what's the
have.
current cost for maintenance estimated to be then? Ongoing maintenance?
So the current cost for maintenance, if it's just under grass, is around $12 square meter for cutting the grass 6 times a year as per our current level of service. And then for any gardens and stuff, that is all labor based. So we're looking at around $70 an hour to look after gardens in that area.
So I still don't have a number. I just want to know a number. It doesn't have to be now. It can be later, but I would like to know a number, please. Because
Councillor Cox, can I just, we have a.
Just to be clear on why the options have been tabled the way they are, councillors, is option 1 has been budgeted for and has been incorporated into the existing project and into the existing maintenance budgets. What option 2 is showing you is the additional costs that would be over and above what we've already budgeted for in the project and in our maintenance costs.
And Medenia, did you have something to comment on? Yes, yes, acknowledging you have more
quite finished. I'm
questions.
nearly there.
Set for questions. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So obviously this plan, for those that don't know, the Boffin-Miskell plan was commissioned by Daryl Scott from Aomokoroa Country Club Estate, sorry, and he has taken it upon himself, given his passion as landscape gardening, that's his profession, and he's somebody who's paid for this report as well, and has also offered his services for nothing for us to get something that is far better than below average in my view. So I would not want to see this council just disregard this report as too expensive. I'd also like to know from the Kāinga Ora funding that was left over as we came in under budget, what is the situation with that funding? Can any of that be used for this?
Can I just add to what Daryl has currently paid for? He has indicated that he won't pay for anything going forward. If we had to do any more design or to kind of come up with a final plan with species that can actually help, because we did indicate during that meeting that some of the plant species that they have listed won't work. I'm just saying there's still some work to be done and we'll have to carry those costs.
Daryl has offered to help at no cost. And there are, it's completely open to whatever works, obviously, but I'm not suggesting that we should even be doing this holus bolus, but we need to start looking at doing things better. So my question regarding the Kāinga Ora funding or the leftover money, was that something that was possible to use towards this?
Well, I think we've got a duty of care to Kāinga Ora. We put a design for it. We have built the road according to that approved design, which Kāinga Ora has signed off. They know that we are expecting savings and that those savings will go back to them.
So they have requested, because I know that you were going to be going to them and asking them, did they want the money back or not?
That we just asked them whether they would pay, but some of the savings, about 1.6 million, could be used for the permanent industrial pond that's currently under construction. That's separate to the landscaping.
So just to be clear with that, councillors, the council approved a $2.5 million, I think, towards the industrial pond. And what we've been exploring with NIF is whether $1.6 million worth of the savings could be given back to us, so that instead of using the 2.5 million that council had put towards the pond, that we could then use that funding towards the pond and reduce council's contribution towards the pond. we haven't heard anything official back from that request.
So option one, the preferred option, can I just clarify, is that essentially trees, specimen trees and grass? Is that roughly how it sits?
Yeah, yes, but we'll have to consult with the transport team to ensure that whatever we plant is low maintenance and that the roots won't affect pavement going forward or drainage.
So there's no low shrubbery or flower beds or anything like that. It's trees and grass basically.
Yes.
So the next question is, so I understand the request from the community to come up with something special and that looks good, and that, you know, that maybe is over and above what council might normally do. So is there an opportunity for the community, either physically through volunteers, voluntary work, or, you know, supplying extra money to plant, say, extra trees or nicer grader trees or something like that? So, you know, if you want, if I'm just guessing here, but if the standard is one tree every 100 meters, that maybe it's every 20 meters and you have a tree line avenue rather than a sort of sparse thing. Is that still feasible, or what's the thinking there?
Well, I think we'll just need to be careful as to where we plant what, because we have such an extensive underground services. All of the Mokoroa Peninsula services are essentially in the Mokoroa Road. We had 7-meter wide trenches at some point while we were constructing, so we could put in all the services. So if that were to happen, I think that would just need to be done in conjunction with the transport and project team.
Yeah, so no one's suggesting open slather on going out and planting trees, but it just conceptually, if the community or Darryl or whoever wants to plant more trees, so for example, you have a tree-lined avenue, and there's some great examples, you know, maybe even in Te Puke, you aim for something like that with assistance from the community, rather than, you know, you'll get one liquidamia every 100 meters, which, you know, looks okay, but it's nothing special. So is that conceptually still possible with option one?
I really think it depends on where we want to plant it. Are we then making a decision that we will be creating new beds where we have to dig up some concrete, or are we talking about where we currently have planting and we just basically...
Well, if there's a grass berm and we're not going to plant over surfaces and we're not going to dig up concrete, is there potential for the community to enhance it either through their physical work or contribution financially?
I think that there'll always be potential for additional planting to be brought into that area. One of the fundamental things we need to remember, councillors, is that we literally have 2 months before this project is done and dusted, and we're in the throes of completing the project. So a decision today actually determines whether we do it under the structure plan project that we're dealing with, or whether we find an alternative way, either through the community board or through another funding mechanism, to do this work if there's ambition from council to look at doing it.
I just want to make sure we're not, the option, if we choose option one, we're not precluding or somehow forbidding the community from physically helping or financially contributing to a better outcome that doesn't create long-term problems, either access to services or, you know, expensive weeding around little plants. This is all about trees. In my view, it's about trees and having decent trees and having enough trees that you create an impact rather than the bare minimum.
I think that option one doesn't preclude any future decisions. It just makes a decision around the project that's currently live.
So planting season is also underway currently, so we probably have until August to...
But you can plant trees any time, and yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to have it done under the current project, is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Alvin.
I agree with the Mayor's comments that if this is not exclusive to further work, then that's fine. What I'm more interested is the council policy that people mow their own verges. And it looks to me, when I looked on my map, the large proportion of this is adjacent to private properties that will have an expectation to mow those verges. So I'm not sure to what extent the maintenance costs will blow out in the manner you say, if that's the responsibility for the adjoining owner to do it. So that's my first question. And my second request is, I hope that you are preparing these verges in a way that the adjoining owners can mow the damn things. Because there's an expectation that they mow, but I have already raised in one instance where it was simply dangerous for the adjoining landowner to mow it. So one, I don't think the maintenance costs are going to be as high as you say they might be with an increased level of planting. But two, when we are doing this job, can we have some respect for the adjoining landowners who are required by council to maintain those verges? So just those 2 points, thanks.
Yes, absolutely, no problem. Yeah. Just on the verges thing, what we're addressing, that the frontage of a person's house, that is for him to mow, that is typical with us and TCC and every other council, is when it's to the back of the house or the side of the house, that is when we mow it. Yeah.
Councillor Joyce.
Yeah, I'm just really following up on the mayor's point. Yeah, is a compromise possible? I mean, these recommendations to me basically says, yeah, we'll go ahead as we were. Whereas, you know, could we, for example, add number 5, directing staff to work with the community board, ward councillors and interested parties in a Mokoroa to see how this plan could be enhanced without, you know, as a number 5 there, so that we aren't just sort of parking this and saying, okay, well, we said we're going to do what we said we did and nothing else. I'd like you, wondering if that's possible, please. I'd also note that, we have, courtesy of Boffin Miskel, beautiful visuals of option 2, but obviously we don't seem to have any real idea about how option 1 would look. So, I don't know if there's any visuals available for how our current plan, because, from a contrast compare point of view, it would be kind of nice to be able to contrast and compare. I just think we're underdone on this. I accept we can't commit to option 2 because it's expensive. It has all kinds of implications that you've rightfully outlined. But I would love to see a paragraph 5 out of there of a suitably vaguely worded path forward, so this doesn't get lost. This impetus for something better. I don't know if that's acceptable to the chairman. If we can add a number 5 saying that staff work with the community board, ward councillors, and interested parties in a Mokoroa to try to find a way forward that makes for a more special entrance into this important suburb.
I think, councillors, one thing that you can do, and has become very clear, at any time you can move or amend or put in a new motion, and you'd be very welcome to do it. I think you wish to speak?
Happy for an option 5 that indicates that this will be worked on a little bit more outside of the project, and we continue to work on it. That's fine. If council wants, we could take a 5-minute adjournment while we work up a point 5 for the paper.
Because the other option really to me is lay it on the table, because I don't think we're in a position to make a decision. Yeah, we don't have enough information to make a decision, but that would hold up the project, and I don't want to do that. You're near the end of the project, so I'm looking for a way forward that doesn't hold up the project, but still allows the Mokoroa to have a more special entrance, which I think is important.
Councillor Daly?
I think I've probably got PTSD on this issue through the Main Street planting in Te Puke, and that was a plan that was actually produced by Boffin Miskel in about 2015, 2016, even though they, Mornay Hugo was the lead for that Boffin Miskel plan for the upgrade of Te Puke's Main Street. And I believe that at the time they did contract out the landscape planting side to Lysart Consultants. But I see in this case, Mornay seems to be the lead landscape architect. But so I'm a little bit concerned because a lot of these plants that I see where it says remove lawn and plant fully with low maintenance ground cover species to shared path edge are very similar to what we've got in the Main Street of Te Puke. And while some of them are okay, some of them I don't think have worked as intended. Also, some of these trees, liquid amber and magnolia, I mean, they've grown extremely well in Te Puke. You know, they're probably now becoming an issue because of the size of them. And we had a similar thing around our Te Ara Kikatea pathway, where one of our members has been heavily involved in forestry throughout his career, and he specified all these sort of plants around the walkway, and they have now just become a forest as well. So I am concerned about the scale and number of these plants. Sure, they will look great initially.
Is there a question?
And
Please.
so my question is, from the transportation team's point of view, you're obviously concerned about what's been proposed because of the OPEX, ongoing OPEX. And so I guess I want to, you've obviously got some lessons learned from the Te Puke experience and other areas, but are there more suitable ground cover plants than these? Can you truly get a ground cover plant that is lower maintenance than maybe some of these options, or even indeed just mowing lawns?
Thank you for bringing that up, because removing the plants in Te Puke and replacing with grass, that is exactly where we don't want to go to 8 years later from today if we decide on Omakarawa. So the suggestion is that I've spoken to a couple of arbiters on the plant selections and stuff, and they really don't agree with the plant selections that has been presented, and especially with aggressive tree and root growing of some of that tree, destroying assets, footpaths, curbs, and stuff like that. So there's definitely a piece of work that we have to go through to ensure that we select the correct plants, the correct trees at the right places. And with that, we have no problem with. We just cannot hold up the current project because it's come to a standstill when it comes to landscaping. Suggestion is, let's finish what we have started, finish the project, and then find a way forward with correct plants and trees that will be beneficial to council in the long term.
Councillor Alvin?
Yeah, just really 2 or 3 questions. Number one, I accept that we want to complete the project. Are we on a use it or lose it position with some of our funding? It's step 1. Step 2, is there anything with the proposed option 1 that prohibits doing a more extensive stage 2 later on? Because I'm conscious of the fact that they say, when's the best time to plant an oak tree 20 years ago? When's the second best time today? Yeah. So I think there's some work we need to get going. But to me, that would depend on whether anything we do in stage 1 is going to stuff up stage 2. Because the other thing that I'm interested in this becomes a matter that should be a consultation for the Omokarawa Community Board. That's where it should go. They should be having some input into what they want there. And if there's increased maintenance, then as far as I'm concerned, if they're getting something more significant than the other ratepayers in the community, they should pay for that. And that becomes a targeted rate exercise for them. So that's my thinking. But really the first 2 questions are, we're going to lose it or use it or lose it situation with our funding if we don't sign this off now. And secondly, does stage 1 influence or damage the options under stage 2?
I'll answer the second question first. What we do on stage 1 doesn't necessarily have any implication on what we'll do under stage 2. In terms of the funding arrangements, potentially there is a use it or lose it situation. However, this is scope that was never agreed upon when the funding was put in place for the project. So council would be leaning on council's local share to fund this additional work. We haven't done the numbers around that. I don't believe that NZTA would consider this as part of the original scope.
Deputy Mayor.
I'll have quite a lot to say when we get through the questions, but when Darryl Scott, whom I didn't recognise when he came in there at public forum and spoke about the need for landscaping within Omokarawa Did any staff member actually contact him later, Bradley? Or did it just sink without trace?
No, we were in contact with him. He was overseas also for a while, but we were in contact with him.
So could I ask, with the mowing being a significant issue out in Omokoroa and in parts of our district, has any thought been given to the berm development, which the mayor raised spectacular trees that could either be donated or funded someplace else for an extraordinary entrance into Omokoroa? Has that ever been thought of?
I think the biggest concern is we just don't have a lot of space in Omokoroa. That's the problem. I mean, and then we've got all of the significant underground services. There's quite a few businesses also on the right-hand side of Omokoroa, and we need to be mindful where we plant trees and how we plant it. I think it was intentional that we've got 3-meter wide footpaths, for example. The intention was for cyclists and pedestrians to be able to walk. And then obviously we've also widened the road. So I think the space becomes quite constrained along the road itself.
So as we complete the roading network, there's a significant berms that are quite large, and maintaining those will be a challenge for anybody. And so that will be, are you taking that into consideration with the planting program?
Yes, but I'm not aware of a lot of berms. I mean, along
you just have to drive through.
Yeah, yes, but I mean that can actually be planted. I mean, I know on industrial roads itself, there's only a little bit of land available where we can physically
No, I'm
plant.
talking about the main road into Omokoroa, which has to have a standard and a style that reflects the quality of the environment that people live in. They're proud and they want something special. Speaks.
Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, look, option one, obviously very lack of detail, which is disappointing. This is a whole new and a beautiful place to head into. It's a place where we can get it right, and we need to get it right. I'm a great believer in what the mayor was saying is we probably do need the community or the public to have some say in what should go where. You talk about services, but I would assume that every grass area, if the public or the community board or whatever decide they wanted to put something there besides a tree being here and another tree 100 metres away, that they have the option to do it. Services should be well under the ground and they should be protected. So I would assume any flowers, grass, that sort of stuff would be great. So it's important we get there. My question probably is more around we had a public come in here one day talking about a rock with a lizard on that was meant to go on a roundabout there. Has there been any thoughts in regards to that being placed somewhere along there as well? So let's get it right.
Councillors, that was a decision that you delegated down to the community board. The community board has a paper this evening that I'll be presenting to them for them to make a decision on that rock. What I will reiterate, councillors, is that today's decision is not about planting. It's not about the look and feel of the entranceway to Omokoroa. It is about the structure plan project that is happening in Omokoroa and whether that is the correct avenue to undertake this work. And our advice is that that is not the correct avenue for the reasons that you yourselves have indicated, that we have not consulted, we do not understand the financial implications of this, and therefore, given the status of the project, our advice is that that project is not the right way to deal with this.
Councillor Coxhead.
It's just something that Councillor Alvin said, if the people of Omokoroa want something more, they should pay for it. I think they're going to be paying for it with the increased population, to be fair. And I think we shouldn't forget about that medium density residential standards. And once those subdivisions are completed, it's going to be a very busy place with very small sections. So I think a nice entrance with beauty, and this isn't a question, I know, a beautiful entrance would make a huge difference to the look and feel of that place.
About this and so on, but the mayor, you wish to speak?
I was just saying, while the talk's been going on, there's been a few emails back and forth. And so Rose has just sent a combined version of some of those comments for a potential recommendation 4C, which I can read out now, that staff work with the Omokura Kaimai Community Board, Kaimai Ward councillors and other interested parties in Omokura to consider options to further enhance the area, noting the constraints with respect to underground services and maintenance costs. So whether you wish to take some time out to consider the recommendation or whether that receives favour from the group, I don't know, but
When can we speak to we've had the questions, when can we start speaking, sir, and move these recommendations?
Well, I just want to be sure that everybody's comfortable that they understand what's put before them right there at present, just in case there's a question.
So maybe the first question is to Brad, does that recommendation fit with
Yep,
the
that
structure
works for
plan
us.
and what you need to do?
Yeah, that works for us.
Can I just add, can we just say entrance area? We're not talking about the whole of Makaroa.
Yep.
So we could add just the reference of the Buffer Miscall plan, because that will limit that. But I'd like to see it. Honestly, we've passed a couple of resolutions lately on the fly that have got us nothing but into trouble. I want to make sure I see that in writing. I want to understand the consequences of it. No, Lee, what has just been said is totally different to your email, and I don't.
So there's a point of order. There's another email off. Yeah.
Okay, I was just in my emails momentarily ago, and it was not there. So please do not tell me what is in my email. I can read my emails.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep it in order. So again, any further comment or additions or whatever
arrived.
change just there before we actually do put it? Again, we want to be right, but I don't want to be sitting on this all day.
It's just arrived, actually.
Okay, it has been suggested again that perhaps councillors take 5 minutes just to have a quick chat over it, but we still have questions. Okay, well, we haven't put a motion, so that's one.
Have we included the Boffa Miscall reference that Graham has just discussed?
What
Yeah, I'd like to see it, the full thing before I make any decision on this.
Yeah, so I think
the plan
that's
is
fair.
attached. Sorry, the plan is attached to the report.
Yes, but it's where it sits within the progress of what's being put forward at present. Yeah. Okay.
You can just adjourn for 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's just adjourn for 5, everybody, and quickly have a chat. And I mean strictly 5 minutes, no more. Let's get on with business today. Okay, councillors, we are back live. We've had a chance to talk about what an extra or amendment would come forward. It's a bit difficult for you to read probably at present.
Yeah.
So the suggested
Point
amendment
of order,
is on
point of
the,
order, sir. I thought we were adjourning so we could refine our resolution. And as far
I
as I'm,
thought we were,
and get the wording right. And I'm currently not satisfied that we've got the wording right from my perspective. And I think we've got the opportunity to just spend a bit of time just making sure we're all comfortable with what I think we broadly agree on. So we don't have to continually debate ups and thus when we go back into the meeting.
We are back in the meeting. At present,
I'm
sir.
aware of that. I was just objecting to the fact that we came back in a hell of a hurry when we hadn't resolved what we'd decided to actually agree to. So
Unfortunately, some councillors wish to debate it when we were sort of working. We've given it some time. We can still make changes to this if you wish now, but it's now in. No one's moved or seconded, but we can. I think we've got to start coming to some decision here. If we move it and second it, then we can go into a situation again of making other changes.
I just don't want this to get precious.
Deputy Mayor.
Sir, we had Darrell Scott, I didn't recognise him, come in public forum. And he spoke as a landscape architect. He was concerned about the landscaping in Omokoroa. Nobody contacted him, but I rang him when I discovered who it was and asked him if he could, whatever plan he came up with, and he told me he was going to pay for it himself because he felt so strongly on the need to have a great entrance, as the mayor has said, into Omokoroa. And I suggested.
Excuse me, Deputy Mayor, we're not debating yet. We haven't got a. We haven't
Well,
got
the
a.
recommendations up here, and anybody's free to move.
They have not been moved. They have not been moved as yet.
I'm moving it.
Sorry, I can't accept that at present. There's people with other queries. Councillor Cox here.
So just for clarity, point 3, that the Projects Monitoring Committee adopts option 1, targeted replacement planting. Shouldn't that be removed because the amendment contradicts that?
No, you actually, we can select and not have that as part of a motion.
So we can take point 3 out.
Unless as part of the project, we continue with that planting and the enhancement planting comes later.
Sorry,
my fear is that we
technically-
railroad
excuse me?
ahead with option 1 and we never get to option 2. So I would prefer, I won't be voting for point 3, that's for sure.
Technically, we can remove option 3 as if somebody wishes to move it. That is what we can do. That is what this meeting is about. Settling those.
So
things.
getting a bit
Your worship.
confused about where we're at. So can I propose another amendment?
Just, it hasn't been seconded.
The
Move
mayor,
motion.
you wish to?
No, I just quick question following from Councillor Coxhead's comment. So my question to staff is, if we were to remove recommendation 3, which is adopting option 1, does that sort of mess with getting the planting done this planting season in accordance with the structure plan? And because I don't feel that recommendation 3 conflicts with 4C, and that 4C potentially achieves what you want to achieve by adding to option 1. So, yeah, is that a question for you, Brad, or other staff?
Councillor Daly.
Just going back to the initial concern about no design or plans or costings for the option 1. Is that something we want to resolve? I mean, in terms of actually seeing what's currently proposed?
Councillor Daly, I think that's part of what the problem is today. Yes, we do. That
Yeah.
seems to be the feeling that I'm getting. I'm summarising something here as opposed to, it's not a workshop, but I'm summarising that that's what I'm detecting from councillors.
There's a big middle ground between the Boffa-Miskell ultimate plan and the more minimalistic, maybe practical plan that staff are presenting, up suggesting, recommending. And yeah, so I guess you've got to find a middle ground somewhere. I understand the desire to have something a bit more attractive, but I think you can go over the top with these things if you're not very careful.
I do have a response to the mayor's question. I think that you are fairly secure as the recommendations are written, because whilst point 3 references option 1 and that council adopts option 1, point 4C, and if you read point 4, it says that the P&M committee directs staff under option 1 to do point C. So even though we are adopting option 1 as per the report, you are then directing staff that under that option 1, you want us to do point C, which is to consider further options for further enhancement.
How does that feel to people? Are we prepared to, somebody wishes to move? Deputy Mayor.
I'm happy to move the recommendations, a lot of them. And I think that item 4C trumps one of the ones further up. I think the procurement of, am I speaking to this? Is there a seconder so I can get on with it?
The mayor's seconding it.
Right. So I'm really disappointed in Mokoroa and the way it's been treated. My views, I've lost trust in the landscaping proposals, and it's not your fault because it was done before you were here. But my views, we council staff decide they'll have a planting program. The guys left and the people are angry and they want those prickly irises out and grass planted. If I look down Mokoroa Road by the supermarket, we had rocks in the median strip and people were so angry, never approved by council. And I don't know what it cost to put them in, and I don't know what it cost to take them out, but we made mistakes and it's not good enough. And so when we had the fellow, whatever his name was, Darryl Scott, coming, I'm a landscape architect and I'm not satisfied with the standard of planting in Mokoroa. That was what he said. Nobody contacted him, but I did. And I said to him, if you've got a landscape plan, and he was prepared to pay for it, please share it with the board members and the Kaimai board councillors so that we can support you with whatever plan you come up with. And that was the background. And suddenly I've got an invitation to go to Mokoroa, and he had staff there, and plus Tracy, Councillor Coxhead, and myself. It was a very tense meeting, and unlike Te Puke, Becca would have had, I don't know who they had doing Te Puke, but the man from Becca lives in Mokoroa, and he was quite passionate about the need for planting. Everybody, and so my background is, when I was on Waimari, one of the first decisions we made was the pin oaks down Memorial Avenue. And to this day, they are huge and they are beautiful. And it is one of the great entrances into any city. If you go down Memorial Avenue, I was there when they were planted. So we're not talking about 2 years or 3 years. We're talking about the long-term interests of Mokoroa. And it's certainly not going to be like it is now. It's going to grow. And you want it to grow beautifully so that people have a sense of pride in their community. And the way we mow the grass is as a catastrophe of the worst kind. And we don't want that for our communities. So I'd love to see, and the mayor suggested that if we could have special trees, people might want to sponsor them if we were short of money. So there is a really big option to do things beautifully. And I haven't contacted, what's his name, Andrew Corkle, but on the entrance to State Highway 29 and 2, there's a beautiful bird monument in the roundabout. And we could have something like that on the state highway as well. And maybe we have to wait till the next alterations comes in for that to be done. But I firmly believe that this is so important that the environment has to be taken into account. The median strip, of course, has got all the powers and whatnot in it. And so you don't want to interfere with we can do things differently. And I just wish that we could, when we talk about procurement, I would assume that you've already ordered the plants from Matakana Island and paid for them to be planted. And so that's a procurement that hasn't had any guidance from any councillors. So I'm supportive of the recommendations, just want to get on with it.
Councillor Coxhead.
Firstly, I want to acknowledge Daryl Scott and Mornay from Buffer-Miskel for the fact that they cared enough to get off their hoofs and do something about something that they cared a lot about and cared about the community and the look of the community. I am still very uncomfortable with point 3 in terms of adopting option 1, targeted replacement planting. And being landscaping limited to targeted replacement planting. So the reason being is I do not want that just to plough ahead and then suddenly, oh no, we have concreted that now. Like as we've already heard, we can't dig up concrete. We've already concreted that part. I don't want to go down that path at all. I'm very happy with 4C, but I do not trust that 3 may not be a little bit of a opening to let what I don't want to happen. So I will not be voting in favour of any of these recommendations today.
Thank you. Your worship.
Yes, thank you. So overall, I'm really keen that we have a special entrance to Omokura, will be a major new town in our district. And you just have to look back at the foresight of our forebears, planting amazing trees in Te and that's more you see in Tauranga as well, along Cameron Road. And we should be aiming for something similar. But there are practicalities to consider too. And I think the recommendations we've got here recognise the constraints of maintenance costs and underground services, but also allows the community, elected members, Dale Scott, should he so wish, to have input and contribute to a better entranceway. So I hear what Councillor Coxhead says, and if there's a need to amend or change the recommendation slightly, I'd be happy to do that. But to be honest, I'm quite comfortable that the recommendations we've got on the screen do what we intend them to do, and allow us to have staff to get on with the planting for this year, and us to enhance that either this year or next year or in future years. So I'm in support. Thank you.
Councillor Alvin had his hand up.
There's a saying, when you find yourself in a hole, keep digging. And I think that's what we've been doing. The first thing I observe about this is this matter should have gone to the Amakarab Community Board for consultation right at the outset. That's where it needed to be. It's their community. They needed to have input into that. I'm disappointed that it didn't. Could you have the resolutions up there again, please? Secondly, I'm in support of this because I'd like the project to get underway now, because I think it needs to. We've heard that the work won't necessarily detract from anything that happens in the future. And I think the people at Omakura deserve to see some progress at this immediate time, rather than 12 months of weeds growing out there. What I am mindful of, and some of the comments that Councillor Coxhead has referred to about it just being a fait accompli to say nothing, is perhaps I'd like to suggest that the words in C, with a view to, are they there? Where are they? Is that changed again? They said to consider options, sorry, to consider options. To change to consider options to, with a view to further enhance. So we're actually making it a more positive obligation to consider and make sure we give effect to the wishes of a Makara, not just to consider the options with a, to interested parties with a view to further enhance. So what we're saying is we are expecting them to want to contribute to a further enhancement, not consider options, so that they have a directive approach to us to consider rather than just an advisory thing. That gives them a bit more authority. I'm just foreshadowing that. I don't want to get into it, but to consider options to further enhance is really a nothing. With a view to further enhance is a positive requirement of contribution to the enhancing of the area, which I think they deserve to have the right to do. So I'm not going to die in the ditch about it, but if there was some support for that.
Point of order, I'm happy to change if the mover.
So the movers and seconder are happy to make that change or addition?
Sorry, Councillor Alvin, could you just clarify exactly where it was?
I just want to remove the words to consider options to just being with a view to.
Okay, so that's comfy. The parties are comfy with that?
Yeah. So on that basis, I'm supportive of the process. The place goes back, the decision making goes back to the place it needs to go back to. They have some meaningful contribution to the enhancement of their area.
Okay, thank you. Councillor.
I realise the time for questions is over, but Councillor Cox has raised a point that immediately put a question in my mind. Is there any more concrete to be laid between now and the end of the project? Is there anything irreversible or, that you've got planned over the next couple of months before you finish option one that would be to the detriment of potential future options, or have you already done your concreting?
We've already laid the concrete for what we call stage one, which is from the roundabout up until Prol Road. Stage two from Prol Road to the railway line is still under construction.
Is there any way we could just park that for a little bit, unless it's really, I presume we will need a pavement, but anything more than that we can, we're trying not to close off options, right? Everybody agrees we want something better. We don't know how we're going to do it. We don't know how we're going to pay for it. We don't know yet, but we just don't want to close off any options.
What that would do, councillors, if you choose to put a halt on the concrete work for stage two, is it would likely be a variation to contract with the contractor, and so council would need to accept an increased cost to the project and a deferred time frame to deliver the project.
Is it when the concreting that is still to come? Is that just footpath? Is it? Yeah, we're going to need footpaths either way. So if there's nothing too much more to be done, I don't think it really it's not going to get in the way. It's better to get the footpath put in and then work on options after that, because we all still need a footpath.
Okay, Councillor Daly.
I'm happy to support these recommendations now, but I do want to provide a cautionary note because we've got lived experience in Te Puke, as I've already stated, and the consequences of going with a very nice, attractive landscaping plan are not necessarily felt till quite a way down the track. And while things look great when you first plant them, quite often, and for the first 2 or 3 years, over time, these things become unmanageable, uncontrollable, the OPEX increases, and I don't have a lot of faith in the sample landscape plan that's been provided. 3 of these trees that are suggested are deciduous, liquid amber, fastigiata, and oaks. And we've got a significant issue in Te Puke with oaks every year where they shed their leaves and we just spend a fortune tidying them up, and then we get multiple complaints from the public about these leaves that are falling all over in the car parks and so forth. I went to school in Turing in the 1970s. That was a new town built in the 1950s, 60s. And it was lovely little trees all around the place. But you go back there now and it's like a jungle. You know, the trees are so big and massive. And last time I visited my mother, there was a hole dug under to get into some services, and the root structure between the footpath and the road was just like a tangled mess. And I'm concerned about some of the other planting situations that we've done around the district. In Te Puke, we've got a new subdivision in Tynan Street. We've got some trees that are going to grow to be very big. They've got about 2 feet for their roots to grow. So you've got to be very careful and very cautious. And I put on notice now that I'm going to put a notice of motion in on behalf of the Te Puke Community Board, because we've had these Main Street
That
issues.
is outside of this motion.
No,
So,
I'm entitled to state that,
Councillor,
because this
that is outside
is
of
exactly the
this
same
motion.
issue. The same issue.
Maybe, but it is outside of this motion. Okay, we have Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm generally in support of these recommendations, especially in regards to empowering the community board and the community to have say in what they have to live and see every damn day. So I am that. I do have concerns around option 3. That's more to do with the targeting replacement planting and being landscape where, yeah, I do want to have that bottom level having a bit of say. And if it means altering that number 3 to give them a bit more empowerment, I'm happy to go along with that as well.
Is there some other amendment coming here? Councillor Coxhead, we've spoken, but you wish to make an amendment.
I'd like to move an amendment to remove option 3, please. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, that is my question. Do we have a seconder?
Point of order, isn't that just a direct negative of what's been moved?
Yeah, I don't know that I see it totally as an issue.
Sir, it lapses for want of a second.
Yeah, I guess in the end, that's probably the end of it.
Point of clarification, wasn't that the staff suggestion that we needed that to complete this project and utilise these funds?
Okay. Unfortunately for you, Councillor Coxhead, there isn't a seconder. I think this has gone around the room enough. Does the Mayor wish to have a closing thing?
No.
Deputy Mayor, sorry.
I could say a great deal, but I think the recommendations here say it all, and the community is going to be really happy to have some influence in it. So it's good.
Thank you. Right, well, I will put the motions as can we put them up on the board again? Yeah. So everybody is totally clear what's in front of them again. So what we have is through from 1 to 4C. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Division called? You comfortably recorded that?
Yeah, do you want me, is it just?
Just Tracy.
Yeah, raise your hands if you can.
Okay. Those in favour of the motion, raise their hand. And those against? Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to page 69 through to 106, the infrastructure services projects update. Oh, and thank you very much. Sorry to staff there. Sorry, thank you.
Councillors, it gives me pleasure to bring to you the latest version of the infrastructure projects update. In this version, there's some changes to some of the projects that we're reporting on. It's generally just a general update on projects that have been closed, projects that are underway and in construction. Number of staff are available to answer questions for any particular project should there be a need. One of the things that you will see is attachment 2 on the projects update. And attachment 2 just gives you a view of where the different programs of work are forecasted to be at the end of the year, noting that that attachment is now probably 2 and a bit months old in terms of a forecast. I'm happy to answer any questions, and for those questions that I don't know the answer, there'll be much smarter people that do.
Okay, so councillors, questions. Councillor Joyce.
Project by project, to book a new pool, will that come back to us as part of the long-term plan? Because that's obviously a major investment.
Currently, that is the idea, Councillor Joyce. We are currently working on how best to present that back to councillors. It would more than likely be in the form of a business case that will be brought back to council.
TUI Reserve Playground renewal. There's nothing in here about the complaint from the neighbour. I realise this may have been prepared before you had a chance to go out there. Perhaps we get, if there any update for councillors, because other councillors won't be aware of what's happening there.
We've received a complaint from an immediate neighbour next to a playground up in Wahi Beach when we did the playground renewal. Myself and the program manager have been out to meet with him, understand his concerns. We have now brought that back and are looking at options that we could do to try and alleviate the situation up there in terms of his complaint. And we're just working through that. We've received a notification through his lawyer for a legoima on previous decisions and designs and that sort of thing, which we're also progressing.
His Worship.
3 questions from me. Firstly, page 72, looking at the Dave Hume project. I'm slightly concerned or interested to see the heating of the pools has recently changed from hot water to gas. Now, I understood it was a hot water bore, geothermal. I'd be concerned if we're heating the pool via gas, but is that right?
I'm actually unable to answer that. I'll see if Peter Watson is available online to provide an answer to that, but maybe I could take your next question while
I mean, if it's a temporary issue, that's one thing, but the whole
is online.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So that replaced, we did put in some, as part of the upgrade, some electrical heating for the changing rooms, stuff, etc., because we wanted to increase the shoulder season to make it usable more often throughout the year. However, unfortunately, the drawdown on the power was miscalculated, and that the drawdown on the power was then creating other issues for the main componentry on the motherboard, I guess, for running the pool and all the automatic chlorination systems, etc. So it was agreed. I made a decision to move to gas just for that heating. So it's not heating the whole pool. That's all done by bore system as originally planned and consented for.
Thank you, Peter. That's very comforting. Next one was page 74, and that's the Te Puke wastewater alternative discharge matter. It talks about the first two with the subcommittee. Now, I'm not aware that Te Ohu Parawai is a subcommittee, and there was some talk of a desire to create a subcommittee of that, which I don't think is an appropriate thing to do, or at least should come back. So, can you just clarify, Brad, what you mean by the first who is the subcommittee being planned for the 30th of June?
So Te Ohu Parawai at its last meeting voted to create a subcommittee. I will also confirm that having been through the resource consent for Te Puke wastewater treatment plant, the resource consent refers to both a Kaitiaki group, which is Te Ohu Parawai, and then a subgroup that is to look at alternative discharge. So what they have voted through is not is in alignment to the resource consent in terms of creating a subgroup to look at alternate discharge options.
Because I think it's important that, I mean, just drawing parallels with the Te Ahu Waiora in Katikati, that if that the involvement of the Katikati community expressed by councillors and our community board members is incredibly important, and and then it can come to council projects and monitoring for with confidence that there's been significant council involvement. If there's a subcommittee that excludes elected members, then I'd start to be concerned about that.
One of the fundamental things that we have looked at with Te Ohu Parawai, which is implicitly different, is that Te Ohu Parawai has very different terms of reference. The terms of reference for Te Ohu Parawai does not see voting rights for the elected members on Te Ohu Parawai. So one of the current tasks is to amend the terms of reference and bring that back to council to get approval that we amend the terms of reference. That's something that we're working through at the moment to get amended terms of reference.
Thank you. And lastly, for me, page 103, and talking about the solid waste operations. I was interested to see a post on Facebook from one of our compatriots at Tauranga City Council talking about a transfer station for the west of their district, and that the planning is now underway for it. Now, I'd be concerned about that, given this is very much a sub-regional, would be very much a sub-regional facility, and that there was going to be certainly consideration for it being, in our district. And so I'm just wondering, have TCC jumped the gun? Are they discussing it with us? What's the status of that?
They are the sub-region.
I think that His Worship is right on the money. I discovered this TCC's intention by being alerted to the fact that there was an advert on for a tender for someone to write the business case for the potential transfer station out in our district. We have had no formal discussions with TCC. They've not alerted us to it. It's just through people in the sector that have spoken to me and told me that there was this request for a proposal out in the market, which we now understand, and we'll reach out to TCC. Okay. I have the contact details in reaching out to TCC.
Right. So I think we need to raise this formally under the triennial agreement, that this is a cross-boundary issue that needs formal discussion with us, and they can't just go ahead and do it on their own.
What I'll say, Your Worship, is that this was brought to my attention last week. I am yet to reach out to TCC to actually understand what their position is and what they've done. For all intents and purposes, they could have spoken to someone within the council, and I'm just not aware of it. So let me do that first.
Okay, thank you. As long as you're following up, that's all good. Thank you very much.
Sir, could I just ask the Mayor, does he wish to formalise it from a governance level as to, we should know what they're up to in our patch, and I think we need to give the Mayor the authority to actually inquire from a governance level as to what's going on.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think at this stage, let's find out from Brad about staff to staff what's going on, and if it needs a governance approach, then yes, absolutely, I'll follow up. But let's just find out first. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Three quick questions. One is Bledisloe Park. You've got there as complete. I drive around last week, probably 50 metres just further down the road. There was still a major slip regarding a culvert that's dislodged and come down and slipped down the bank. Is that on your guys' radar by any chance?
Sorry, Councillor Beach, where was this?
On Bledisloe Park Road.
I'll pass over to Callum. If there's anyone that'll know, it'll be him.
I'm sorry, I never heard that. Could you just the location again?
Approximately 50 metres downhill from the one that you've got here is complete.
No, I'm not aware of it, but we'll certainly investigate and report back.
That would be good. Page 71. Where are we? 1.8 school variable speed limits. I've had several inquiries from different residents, probably more motorists, in regards probably more to the electronic variable speed limit signs. For the 13 weeks that schools aren't being used, are those signs going to be turned off or altered?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
That's a yes, will it? Yes. And last but not least, page 75. You've got here 3.6 Makatu wastewater treatment plant irrigation. What concerns me is that you engaged to undertake a like for like. The first like never worked. So I'm wondering what the second like is going to do.
I can answer that question. So we've been spending quite a significant amount of time looking at alternatives. So there was a lot of ideas around, could we change the irrigation method? Could we do something different? The conclusion of all that investigation is actually what we had in the first place is appropriate. There's a lot of learnings we can do around that construction methodology, as well as maintaining the disposal field over, because some of the issues is the way that the disposal field's been mowed, puts pressure on the drip line. So there's a lot of learnings in that, but like for likes considered still the most appropriate method to manage that. It's also pretty evident that the infrastructure is just really at its end of life as well.
Supplementary to that, obviously guarantees within the work that's being done, because it was very short-lived, the original like for like, and obviously is it going to be accessible for vehicles, especially tractors and agricultural machinery, to actually do the work on top of that irrigation field?
Yeah, so that's so there'll definitely be, there's no guarantees in the existing work that's been done. That was built in 2012. So we're outside of any kind of window around that. In terms of the vehicle movement on that, that's where we're going to have to be a little bit more careful, more restrictive about not having big heavy tractors driving over it. We're going to have a look at how that, because it's a consent requirement to do a cut and carry operation, how that's actually going to work. We're going to look at that more closely.
Right, Councillor Elvin.
You'll have to excuse me, because every time I see any reference to anything that has any comparison to a toilet, I tend to go into hypoglycemic shock. But I just wonder whether Waihi Beach Road has flushed. What does that actually mean? It's just, what the hell does that mean? It makes no sense to me when a road gets flushed. I mean, I understand some of the other failings. That's just a matter of exclamation for someone.
I'll ask Callum to give a proper explanation, but essentially it's when the road surface starts to get really smooth. And that could be either bitumen rising or stone stripping off the top, but Callum will have the proper definition.
Yeah.
So another name for it is binder rise. So basically the bitumen that we embed the stone in, what happens is it slowly rises to the surface, and the chip falls underneath the bitumen. And the problem with bitumen is it's very smooth, so we don't get the skid resistance we need. We actually have a contractor on the network at the moment addressing a number of sites with flushing issues, including Waihi Beach Road. They were up on Upper Ohawiti Road yesterday, water cutting the surface to remove the excess bitumen, and I was up there yesterday looking at it, and it seems to be very successful treatment.
Okay, that's thanks. Secondly, the Clark Road one, I'm just looking forward to a full result of the breakdown of how that worked out. And thirdly, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed the scorecard. It's pretty dense, a lot of information in there, and I just want to say I really, really appreciated that. I found that quite valuable from my perspective. So thank you for that.
There's nothing quite so practical as driving up our rural roads And I was up at Manawa yesterday, and I thought the quality of our roading rural network is really quite good. And I came down through McLaren Falls Road, and yes, there is work to be done there, and pleased to see that that's being taken care of. But could I ask Mr. Singh, with Allport Road, did any staff member ring to explain to Mr. Snow as to why the alterations to the project what had been undertaken? I haven't called to ask him, but staff were going to do so, and I wondered if that happened.
Apologies, that's an action for me, and I haven't done that yet, so I do apologise for that. It is on my to-do list.
Good enough, sir, because we decided that over a month ago, and it's just practical common sense politeness, and that destroys our reputation as a council that cares. It's not good enough.
Councillor Joyce, did you have? Councillor Allen reminded me that I did have a query on the scorecards. Sorry, page 92, the discussion of the budget on community building, and 93, the discussion on the budget of community facilities, and 94, the discussion of the budget on libraries and service centre, all have exactly the same words. So is that because they're in the same department, or is that just a typo that we seem to have forgotten to update certain sections? So community building, community facilities, and libraries and service centre all have the same explanation of revenue expenses. So that might, I'm not sure if that needs to be fixed. It does seem to be a bit strange to me. And I did a more interesting note was the fact that the water seems to be coming back into balance, which is a good thing, because that's obviously been a problem area for us.
I will look into that and come back to you, Councillor Joyce.
Okay. Yes.
Just to close off a previous conversation that we've had, Your Worship, I've been in touch with Kerry. Kerry is actually on the project steering group for TCC's investigation work. So they have been talking to staff and working with staff in terms of what they're doing for the waste transfer station.
So perhaps we could get an update, PDQ. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple as well, which I've sort of preempted earlier. One is 3.8, and that's actually the installation of backflow valves, and then simultaneously replacing the meters. I'm sort of concerned that is that a really necessary thing at this stage? 10 years seems still to me quite early to replace the meter.
So 10 years is not an unusual amount of time. I think they've got about a 15-year life. Well, I can't remember, but so some of the first meters were installed in a Mokoroa around 2010-ish. So we are kind of reaching that end of life. There's a requirement for us to check and make sure all our backflows are compliant. Along with that, they go and they check the meters, and if the meters really need replacing, they replace them at the same time.
Thank you. And my other one, which is one that is quite concerning in a number of people, is 3.15, which is about the stormwater bund in Wilson Park. I have had people come, and there's continued to be an issue about the height of that. It's basically a metre high in places, and to serve what purpose they still don't know or understand. Basically, I think only one has ever flooded once in there, and they're quite concerned about why it is at that level.
So that bund in the structure is actually not necessarily to protect those properties, it's to protect some of the properties downstream on the crescent, and what it actually does is create head in the network for the stormwater to be able to drive through. We've had our engineers, we've been receiving a lot of complaints or questions around the design. Our engineers have been out on site. They've had one initial meeting with one of the property owners, and at the moment the bund has an element of freeboard on it, so we could shave some of the freeboard off to make it a little bit smaller, and we are in the process of organising a meeting with the residents to talk through it in a little bit more detail to try to address some of their concerns.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. And the other one I have is again back to Waihi Beach Road, then that now that you've been having some work with the flushing and it appears to be working, is there any idea when Waihi Beach Road might get a look at? Oh, is it?
So we're looking to resurface the bends with stone mastic asphalt in October when the weather improves. Unfortunately, the local asphalt plants are unable to manufacture SMA. So that material has to come over the Kaimas from Hamilton. Comes out the plant at 180 degrees. The optimal temperature for Lane is 160 degrees. So we need to be careful that it doesn't cool down below 160 degrees before we get it to site and start placing it. If it does cool down below 160 degrees, then it won't meet our quality requirements and it will probably fail relatively soon after it's constructed. So it does need to be done during warmer weather.
So you're still saying holding to that time frame? Okay, thank you. That's. I guess somebody, oh, sorry. Please.
Sorry, Alan. Some of my questions have been answered by asked by others, so that's good. But if I can just clarify the question about the Te Ohu Porawai alternative options group. Brad, did you say that the subcommittee as proposed would be progressing rather than the full group doing that until the terms of reference are updated, or because you've got a meeting scheduled for the 30th of June and you're saying it's with the subcommittee?
Yeah, so the subcommittee is progressing as per Te Ohu Parawai's last vote to set up the subcommittee and to progress with that first meeting of the subcommittee. At the same time, we're progressing a terms of reference update to amend the terms of reference and give councillors voting rights at Te Ohu Parawai as well.
Yeah, I mean, because there was concern and James stated it, but I'm not sure that we've got to, if the outcome is where we want it to be, but the alternative discharge work and, you know, the Kari group have been through the same process, but I understand that group, the whole committee was involved in that process and went along for the ride basically, but the Te Puke process is suggesting a subcommittee of the Te Ohu Parawai larger hapu iwi group made up of just a select number, I don't know, 4 or 5, plus a kitchen table representative nominated by the group, who's basically a lay person added to the group for consideration. So this is a subcommittee of Te Ohu Parawai that will go through the whole detailed scoping multi-criteria analysis of the alternative options and then make a recommendation to Te Ohu Parawai, who will then make a recommendation to council for these preferred options, which could potentially be millions of dollars in scope to actually implement when we finally get round to a preferred option. So I think I'm just raising concerns that, one, I thought this group was set up to do a full, thorough, detailed analysis of these options so that when it comes back to council, we've got some comfort with what's being proposed as reasonable and fully worked through. But I'm just concerned about this process that seems to be being established right now.
I take on board your concerns, Councillor Daly. What I will say is that the process, as far as I can tell, meets all requirements in terms of the way Te Ohu Parawai has been originally set up, in terms of the way the terms of reference have been set up, in terms of the way the system and the process has been determined prior. So like I said, what was done up in Katikati is very different to the way it was set up in Te Puke. And what we're trying to do is replicate what we have in Katikati down in Te Puke to try and bring some more consistency and standardization and a standardized approach to these sorts of things. At this stage, whilst I can note your concern, there's very little that staff can do to change what's been done and how it currently fits, except to bring a terms of reference in order to change the way it's structurally set up.
If I may, sorry, Councillor Daly. So I'm a little bit confused. Is Te Ohu Parawai a committee under the Local Government Act, or is it a resource consent panel, or what is it? Because
the resource consent panel.
In which case, how are we as a council able to change the conditions of the consent? So
you're not able to change the conditions of the consent. So the conditions of the consent still ask for a Kaitiaki group that will remain Te Ohu Parawai. What we're asking is for council to have input into the terms of reference of how Te Ohu Parawai is structured and set up and how it operates. So you can have influence over that because you're still fulfilling the resource consent requirements regardless of how that group is set up. It's as long as you have that Kaitiaki group. So it's about working with our iwi partners to try and get to a terms of reference that we're all comfortable with. And I think what we've heard from our elected members is that the current terms of reference you're not comfortable with because decisions are being made where you're not party to those decisions and you're not being able to.
So the question for me is, and this is some time ago and I wasn't really involved, but Te Ohu Parawai had elected members on it. It then didn't, or was run by a former chief executive, or he represented us, and then suddenly we seemed not to have votes. So was the terms of reference originally did it originally have elected members with votes, and was that subsequently changed somehow?
I have no idea whether the terms of reference were changed at any point. What I can tell you is that this is the current terms of reference that we have at this point. The live terms of reference do not have voting rights for elected members.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I do need to add some more context because when I first became a councillor, I was appointed to a group to work through the alternative discharge options for the Te Puke wastewater treatment plant down the track to satisfy the conditions of the new resource consent that was currently under application at that time. It was subsequently granted in 2019 for a period of 35 years, and part of that, and that went through a commissioner-led process to determine that. And part of the justification for the 35-year term was that the alternative options had been started to be looked at by council staff and a committee of community representatives, including Tangata Whenua. I was appointed to that by Mayor Weber. We have done extremely detailed engineering analysis, scoping analysis, multi-criteria analysis with technical consulting firms that were brought in, especially AECOM and Becca, I think, Ariel King, who's currently one of our senior planning staff, was involved right through that process. I've got reams of paper this thick of all these considerations, and that occurred over from 2016 to 2021-22 until this last triennium, when that seemed to have all been thrown out. And I go along to the first Te Ohu Parawai meeting, and I'm told that everything that's gone before is just irrelevant, and they're starting from scratch again. We must have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this kaupapa already.
So, Councillor Daly, your frustration is heard. We have provided the subcommittee with all the work that was done prior for them to start with that as the starting point and not to revisit all that work. So that was the fundamental conversation that we've had with the subcommittee. The subcommittee have agreed to review the work that was done prior and to start from there and not have to revisit all of that and start from scratch again.
And yet I raised this at the first meeting, and I feel like I was not heard or just discounted, or I didn't feel very welcome there. But in the previous workshops, we've actually had additional community representatives representing other parts of the community, not just tangata whenua. And I think this is such a big deal that it should be, and elected members shouldn't feel that they're not part of the process or excluded by these terms of reference. The subcommittee didn't include myself or Laura Ray that is going to begin this investigation again, even though they say they're going to review the whole document trail that's already occurred. But I'm just not very comfortable with this whole thing.
So can we ask that there be a report given to us on how this has transpired? Because it does concern me as well that has been raised, and we want to know the process from how it's morphed from one thing, from left to right, so to speak. Is that possible to be got, please? Because we do need to protect elected members and their rights and responsibilities in this type of operation.
We can look into it in terms of how we got to this point, and we can produce a report for that. My advice, councillors, is rather than trying to figure out how we ended up in this point, is to focus on how we move forward from this point. And my advice is that from a staff perspective, we see our best use of time in getting those terms of reference updated and rectified, ensuring that elected members have a voting right, and putting the ship right in terms of where you want to head to, rather than concentrating on documenting how we ended up in this position.
I'm comfy with that, if we can do that, I presume. Everybody? Yes, very quickly, please.
Okay. What I would really like to see is a comprehensive report of all the work that's been undertaken in consultation with ACOM as a consultant, and I think it was Becca was the other one. There was a transition between two halfway through the process, but there should be a very comprehensive, thorough historical report of everything that was worked through, all the meetings that were held, who attended, and how we got to the narrowing down of those options that were presented from the beginning, 8 options narrowed down to 4 options. And that's pretty much where we got to. And we were about to launch into the final option. And that was like 5 years ago. So it's unbelievable. We're still here talking about starting from scratch.
I was just going to clarify, we have that report and we have shared that report. So that report's already prepared, was endorsed by council a number of years ago. We've shared that report with the committee. We can share it again with council if you like. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'd look for a mover, please, to actually receive the infrastructure services projects update. Moved by Councillor Joyce, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Okay, we will have one more resolution, and that's we're going to move the meeting out of public and into public excluded. Do I have a mover? Councillor Coxhead, Deputy Mayor. All those in favour of that, please say aye. Contrary?